Hello and welcome to another episode of Talkin Balls. I am your host Neil Adams, and joined as always is my two lovely co-hosts Curtis and Mark. How are you, gentlemen?
Yes, mate, very well. I'm glad to not be in work today and to be on with my lovely friends.
Yep.
All good over here, thank you, all good.
Joined this week, sorry Curtis, I'm just going to cut you off. You know,
It's fine. I'm used
joined
to it.
this week is broadcaster extraordinaire and sports journalist Richard Graves. How are you, sir?
Yeah, good to be on the show. Thanks for inviting us on, fellas. Business end of the season, December. Playoff places on the line. Of course, if you're Carolina Panthers, it's more about the draft, I guess, or lack of it, given you've given away your draft picks for next year. But delighted as well, Neil, to see you proudly donning that Jets cap. It's brave in the extreme, given what's happened this season, but we like that.
Yes, 100%. No, you have to show your solidarity with your team, even in troubled times. You know, if I didn't support the Jets in troubled times, then I wouldn't support the Jets.
It's been a long time, let's be honest.
Yes, it's been 12 years, I think it's been, since we've made the playoffs. Yeah, it's been a long, hard race. What about yourself?
Sanchez are not that bad just yet.
Yeah. Well, who do you follow yourself, Richard?
For my sins, I have been known to lean towards the Dallas Cowboys, which when I was a kid, they were good growing up. Since then, not so good. A lot of 8-8 seasons, a lot of nearly seasons, and a lot of those games when you just know what's going to happen.
Yes, it seemed to be good until push comes to shove, isn't it, really?
It could be different this year. I kind of like the way they're playing going into December, which any Cowboys followers will tell you that isn't usually the case. But they went through that sticky patch at the beginning of October. I think coming out of their bye week, they've been nothing short of phenomenal. And there's just a hint that I think every quarterback gets that point in their career when nous, savvy, experience, call it what you will, comes to the fore and, if you like, is a bigger part of their game than just pure natural raw talent. And I think over the last 6 weeks in particular with Dak Prescott, that's what we've begun to see. Now, is it enough to take them past the first round of the playoffs and even to a championship game, let alone the Super Bowl? Time will tell. But I will say this much. What he has done in the last 6 weeks on a historical level in the NFL compares with anybody, and the signs are good at this point.
So you would be one of the Cowboys that are happy with Dak?
Look, I think anybody that turns around and says it's time for Dallas to move on from Dak Prescott needs to have a look at what's around them in the NFL right now. You know, you've got 32 jobs, starting quarterback jobs, essentially. And look how hard it is just to have a quarterback that can make you competitive, make you relevant come the postseason. You know, all the years that the Jacksonville Jaguars were looking for a quarterback, they'll be touching wood right now that Trevor Lawrence is okay and able to help them through this final month of the season. But you look at the New York Jets, the quarterbacks they've been through over the last decade. You look at the Cleveland Browns, 24 different starting quarterbacks now since the turn of the century. Any number of teams would give their right arm to have a quarterback who you would say would rank in the top 10, top 12 starting quarterbacks in the NFL, a quarterback that makes you relevant and competitive come the end of the season. Dak Prescott certainly does that. Look, I will be the first to turn around and say he's had his bad games as well, but
everybody has.
Be careful what you wish for. If you get rid of Dak Prescott, then it's a lottery. And I think what I will say about the Dallas Cowboys and the quarterback position is generally, on the whole, they've been a very fortunate organization. You know, you had the Troy Aikman years, then you had 5 or 6 years where it wasn't so good. You fall upon Tony Romo, who was an undrafted free agent. You've literally go from him into Dak Prescott, who was a 4th-round pick, but he wasn't even the bona fide 4th-round pick. He was a supplementary 4th-round pick that the Cowboys had, and all 32 teams had passed on him for 4 rounds before that. So the Cowboys have been fortunate. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, I would take Dak at the Jets. Not a problem. Send him over if you're looking rid of him. Not a problem.
Yeah, I think
I don't think that's on the cards, but you can try.
I'm sure Aaron Rodgers is coming back before Christmas, isn't he?
Oh, I can't see Aaron Rodgers coming back this year at all. Like, I mean, he's going to be just looking and going, right, we're not going to the playoffs now. That'll be me. I'll look after this for a wee bit longer, and that's it.
Sure, what's wrong with Zach?
I mean, this is what we seen. I mean, saying that Zach Wilson is reluctant now to play. I mean, I can't go into my work and go, you know what, I'm not reluctant. I'm reluctant to work here. You know, you can't do that. I don't think that's a thing. You can go in and go, I don't want to play because you benched me. You're still getting paid, buddy.
Yeah, it was tweet. To get in. His tweet was like saying, "Yeah, I'm not too sure if I want to step back into the starting QB." It'd be nice to have that option, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, look, let's be honest. The offensive line at the New York Jets has been shot to bits this season. It hasn't been very good.
They've started 20 different people on the offensive line.
Exactly. And you're dealing with a third-year quarterback who was thrown in from day one, initially onto a very bad team. When he was drafted, it was widely acknowledged that he had all the intangibles, but he was a raw, natural talent. Yeah. He's never really had a chance. And now he's been in a situation where he's thrown back in to the starting role. He gets benched. He gets demoted down the depth chart to number 3 on the depth chart. And now we're looking at having tried several other options. And all of a sudden, Zach, come on back in. It's a really tough situation. I would suspect the Zach Wilson exercise is, if it's not done, it's pretty close to being done, because mentally, as much as anything else, I'm not so sure how much one young man can take, and he's had to put up with a lot. Now, look, has he played well? No, he hasn't. But you've got to look after these guys, especially if they're going to be the face of your franchise, and he has been in a really tough situation up there.
Yeah, it's just been a bad luck, because the way they were looking at it is Roger was going to come in for 2 years and mentor this kid, and then hopefully after the 2 years he was going to be better. But after four plays, that took a wee turn, and he got through into the limelight again. And he does every time he goes in, you just see in his face he just looks like a scared wee puppy, and he shouldn't be there. You know what I mean? He just needs the confidence, I think, and that's it. But
yeah, look, I completely agree with you. I think he needs to be put in a situation where, ideally this year it would have been that situation where he's sat behind Aaron Rodgers, he's learning from a multiple NFL MVP, a Super Bowl winner, and can start again. Unfortunately, events have conspired against him and the New York Jets, and now it almost feels like we're back to square one with Zach Wilson. And honestly, I don't really know where they turn or where he goes from here either.
Yep, it just seems to be the same old thing. It was the same with Sam Darnold. He was given Adam Gase for 3 years, and then he couldn't do anything. No offensive line for him, and now I would take him in a heartbeat right now at the minute, though. But we'll move on from the Jets, because everybody always says we always talk about the Jets on here, Richard. I don't know why.
But I was gonna say
I
it's
feel
very
like
easy
it's something of a counselling session for you.
It's always a kind every week. You know what I mean? It's always like, I feel like a Spurs fan. Oh, next year we're going to be awesome. Oh, we see us next year, and then we do it every year. With Aaron Rodgers coming in, definitely this is the year. It's like with Aaron Pochettino coming in. Oh, it's definitely this year. This is the year we're going to be do. We're going to be winning everything. Look at us. And then it just something mad happens. The Jets way happens, and we're back to normal.
We try next week, maybe take off the Jets hat and we'll see what happens. See how long it takes before we start talking Jets again.
Yeah, we'll do that there. But Richard, we just want to know how did you get into all this? I mean, we seen you start you were a freelance sports reporter back in 1996. So how did you get into this, or what made you want to get into this?
It's a long time ago now. I actually started in hospital radio. I was born and brought up in Yorkshire. Huddersfield, just outside of Leeds, was where I lived, so I did hospital radio there, commentating on Huddersfield Town when they were in what is now League One. From there, I got a job at the local radio station in Leeds, following Leeds United, home and away, and it was literally, the job was match days, you carry the main commentator's bags, we will pay you a fee for that, plus travel expenses, and do with it what you will. And from that, I went into the radio station and did at least 1 day's freelance work experience a week for the best part of a year. Over time, you network. What I always say to aspiring broadcasters and journalists now is, if you're ever at a press conference, be it sport, news, wherever it might be, never be afraid to go up to somebody that you might have seen working for the BBC, working for Sky, ITV, Channel 4, whoever it might be, and just introduce yourself and say, look, this is who I am, this is what I want to do. Do you mind me asking, how did you get into this business? Honestly, hand on heart, guys, I have never, ever known anybody turn around and say, yes, I do mind, and no, I won't tell you. Everybody will always give you 5 minutes of their time, because through university or work experience, we've all made our way somehow, and you know the perils and pitfalls that go with it. So I spent 6.5 years working at Radio Air as Leeds United made it all the way to the Champions League semi-finals. And just as they started going on that downslope, I left there, worked as a sports reporter for another organisation for 18 months, and then ended up through networking, working on a freelance basis initially for Sky Sports News. That became a permanent North of England reporter's role. Worked there for 17 years, all told. And then 2.5 years ago, decided it was time to go it alone and set up my own media business, which is what I've been doing ever since, with my own podcast, Graves on Gridiron, but also working for Premier League Productions on the Premier League side of things. I have good contacts with colleagues that work in the National Football League as well. You know, reporters, journalists, presenters. You build up these relationships over the years. And I'm fortunate enough now, when the international games come to the UK, to work on some of those for NFL Network, which, you know, as a kid growing up and in sports that you love, you see these programs, and, you know, even for me with 27 years experience in the industry, to work for these organizations and cover events and occasions that people frankly would give their right arm just to be at. You know, they save up everything they've got to buy a ticket, travel down there and be at these games. You know, it's a real honor and a privilege, and I always try to make sure that I never lose track of that. You know, I've been really lucky in my time. I've been to 7 Super Bowls on site working. I've worked on several more from the UK, and these are, for many people, once in a lifetime events. And you know, like I say, I get to call it work, and it really isn't.
Wow. Have you always been in the NFL, or is that a recent thing? Or
no, it's not a recent thing. I mean, I'm guessing I'm quite a bit older than any of you guys. So when I was a kid growing up, that you might occasionally, I think Channel 4 initially showed Sunday night football games live, but more often than not, it was a 1-hour program with Gary Imlach presenting it, highlights program on a Saturday morning, that would bring you up to speed with everything that had happened 6 or 7 days before. And at that time, the Dallas Cowboys, early 90s, were good. You had the triplets, Aikman, Irvin, and Emmitt Smith, and loosely they were my team. It obviously dipped a bit as far as coverage in the UK, when I can remember the amount of times that I'd be there on the Armed Forces radio network trying to tune it in. There was no digital radio at the time for the younger members of this audience that are watching, and this very crackly commentary would come in. You get a strong signal, great, I can hear everything, and then it would just fade out, and you'd probably have to wait for at least 60 seconds before it came back. But honestly, the first time I actually got to see a game live and in person, a colleague of mine that I'd worked with in radio had got a job over in Dallas. So I went out there to see him, and the first night we were there, he'd got his tickets to the Monday Night Football game. It was Cowboys Giants, and we went in, and I was, you know, you've played it on the Sega Mega Drive or whatever it was back in the day, but you don't really know much about it. I'm sat there thinking I'm just going to be quiet and behave myself. And 3 snaps into the game, this biggest American you've ever seen in your life is behind me, and he's already on his feet, and he's berating all the fans around him to get up and support the Dallas Cowboys. And from that moment, I was into it. Just the atmosphere. There was no sense of hostility or aggression around. The Cowboys went on to lose that game, by the way, but I was like, no, I love this. This is fantastic. You know, you're high-fiving people that you've never met and will never see again, just because that, you know, you're all supporting the same team in theory. So yeah, that was awesome. And that was, I don't know, 2004 or something. And from then on, that was it. I was hooked on the game, and the rest is history, as they say.
That's it. That's a good thing about American football. Like, I went over to watch the Jets play the 49ers at San Francisco, and you're literally the only Jets fan in a stadium filled with San Francisco 49ers, and it's just great crack. Everybody's like, oh, you, what are you doing? Oh, flip me, great crack. Oh, you're from Ireland? Oh, brilliant. Come on, do this. We'll get beers. Brilliant. Everybody's just all singing from the same hymn, all the same page.
Well, the amount of times I've been filming at tailgates, and you'll have a chat with some fans that have got the barbecues up and the brisket, or if it's Thanksgiving, they have this cylindrical heated element, and they literally just dunk this turkey in it, and they'll fry it for you right there and then. You've got to see it to believe it. But all of them will be there offering you drinks, and you're like, look, no, seriously, guys, would love to, working. Hardest thing you've got to do is pull yourself away from it, because you could be set for the whole afternoon at that point. But yeah, the tailgating experience at pretty much any NFL game, particularly in the States, is just second to none. It is awesome.
Yes, it's just the atmosphere is unreal, and everybody. It's not like football where you're all corned off to what team do you support over that side, what team do you support over that side. But there, it's just there's a seat, go sit in it, work away.
Yeah, completely. I think part of that is probably because America's so big and vast, so it's not necessarily so easy to get to away games. But I tell you what, you've only got to look at the 49ers fan base, the way they've traveled generally this season. You know, there's a reason the Cowboys are called America's team, and it is because their traveling support is so strong. And quite often you'll find, especially in some of these new stadia where season ticket prices are so high, and this goes for Dallas as well. It was a criticism of them for certainly last season at points. You know, fans will buy these season tickets, and they will happily sell them on a game-by-game basis to traveling fans, because they can probably get, you know, the price of their season ticket back if they sell three of those games with them. And so occasionally you will see, obviously the Chargers is a classic case in point. The amount of times they'll play a home game and they sound like the road team, and you've got Justin Herbert having to go to a silent count, which in itself is remarkable.
It is. It's unreal. Like, but how did you find the games this weekend? Any ones that stood out to you?
I think the games generally have been fantastic for different reasons. You know, in recent years, a lot of them, parity in the NFL has been the key word, and the league has prided itself on the fact you've had so many one-score games. That hasn't been the case generally this year. There's been quite a clear definition between the best teams and the worst teams. Obviously, Carolina haven't had a very good year. The 49ers, the Lions, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the cream of the crop in the NFC is perhaps a little bit more even in the AFC, surprisingly, I guess. But you look at this past weekend, I think a couple of games stand out for the surprise reasons, really. You know, you look at KC going up there to Green Bay and losing on Sunday Night Football. And then only last night, who gave the Bengals a chance against this Jags side that's been red hot, you know? And especially when you think that it's Jake Browning, backup quarterback. No one really knows anything about him. He's done nothing in the National Football League. Suddenly he lights up the Jags secondary. He throws for 350-odd yards and guides them down the field to kick an overtime game-winning field goal. So, yeah, those are the two games that probably stand out most. The one I was looking forward to most, without doubt, as probably where everyone else was the Niners against the Eagles.
Yes.
That could be a season-defining game for Philadelphia. This weekend's trip into Dallas is huge for them, and it'll be interesting to see how they come out the other side of it.
I know, I can't wait to see that. There's going to be an awesome game, Cowboys against the Eagles. But did you see the 49ers beating the Eagles this week?
Yeah, I cannot believe you've asked that, Neil. You've clearly not listened to my Graves on Gridiron podcast. I took the Eagles. I took the Niners in that as 2.5-point favourites to cover. What I've seen from Philadelphia in recent weeks, the one thing I really don't like, and it irks me a little bit, is you hear a lot of pundits over the last month, 6 weeks, criticizing Philadelphia for the style in which they've played football, the margins of victory. It doesn't matter. The fact is they've been winning games, and even now with that Niners defeat taken into account, at 10-2, they hold the best record in football. That deserves respect in itself. Now, what I will say is that 2 weeks ago against the Bills, in awful conditions on genuine grass turf field, they went into overtime, and the defense looked tired then. It looked shot. Those defensive players were out on their feet in the second half against the Niners this past weekend. And I just think this run of games where they played the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Bills, now last week the Niners, they've got to go to Dallas again this weekend. You know, that's a murderer's row of fixtures right there. The schedulers weren't kind to Philadelphia. The fact they've only lost one of those games to this point, I think it is amazing and a great testament to the quality of the roster that's been put together. But, you know, now they've got to go into
remember
Dallas.
Who they lost to, by the way, Richard?
Not in this run, they didn't. That was way back beginning of October. Don't you worry about that. We saw that as a blemish on their record, Neil. But it was a good win nonetheless. But yeah, you know, now they've got to go to Dallas this weekend. I would argue there isn't a team in the NFL that feels more confident than the Cowboys when they're playing at home right now. You know, they're 14-0 at home in a record going all the way back to the beginning of September last season. And at home alone, they're averaging 41 points a game this season. Now, you can decry the standard of opponent all you like that they've played. Frankly, I don't care. You can only beat what's put in front of you. And even taking into account the standard of opponent they've played in Arlington this year, to be averaging 41 points a game, are you kidding me? So, you know, they've had a mini break as well to prepare for the Eagles. This is why I say I think it's massive for Philadelphia this week. You know, they're coming against a team who's red hot, that's had long to prepare. Philly themselves are coming off a brutal schedule over the last 5 weeks. And now you've got to go up against an NFC East divisional rival. It's a tough ask.
Yeah. Who do you see in the Super Bowl this year, Richard?
I think from the NFC at the moment, it is tough to argue with anybody that says anything other than San Francisco 49ers. On offense, on defense, they just look a really well-rounded team. I did wonder for a while when they lost their safety, Talanoa Hufanga, whether that might affect them in the secondary. It doesn't appear to have done so to this point. And obviously, when you've got Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle as your options offensively, that's massive. But I do think the key for the 49ers on offense is Trent Williams at left tackle, because as long as he's in the lineup, he keeps Brock Purdy upright. You saw it in that 3-game stretch when they lost 3 in a row. Trent Williams wasn't in the team. He went out injured in that first game when they lost to Cleveland, and Brock Purdy's suddenly been asked to move. And quite quickly, he seemed to lose the composure that, you know, we've become accustomed to. We saw it at the Lincoln Financial Field last Sunday. So Trent Williams is probably the key piece in this offense for me, which might surprise some, but he is a very, very good player.
Yes, Trent Williams is an awesome left tackle. But the addition of Chase Young to that defensive line as well is unreal.
Well, it's not just Chase Young, is it? They brought in Randy Gregory as well, when he was being let go by Denver. So suddenly you look at that defensive front that they had 2 more star pass rushers to. Nick Bosa didn't really need a compliment, but now he's got a couple more. I tell you what, for any offense going up against this pass rush for the 49ers, it's a tough slog. It's it's a big ask to be able to deal with them. You know, people reflect on last Sunday and the 42 points that they ended up putting up past the Eagles. Well, they stuck 42 points on the board against Dallas earlier in the season as well. They haven't played Detroit yet. You do sort of wonder who's going to provide that big test, and that's why I think home field advantage is crucial, because fine, you can say they've just, you know, wiped Lincoln Financial Field with Philadelphia, but if you have to go over to Levi Stadium, it's as good as game over. If Dallas are going to beat the 49ers in the postseason, I think it has to be in Arlington. And quite frankly, they need a few things to go their way right now if they're to have any hope of that happening. I'm not sure it does.
See, that's what I love about the NFL, that we're talking about the Lions now being contenders, whereas last year they were like a joke. And the start of last year...
I love Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions. I think they play exciting, hard football. I do have a little bit of concern about them, though. That their defensive line just hasn't been getting home over the last 2 or 3 games. They had that shock defeat, of course, on Thanksgiving to Green Bay. They very nearly lost to the Chicago Bears before that, and then last weekend they blew a 21-0 lead in New Orleans. And you saw the Saints at one point coming back to beat them there. They hung on and got the win, which was big for them. But yeah. I do have concerns defensively about Detroit right now.
Yeah, it's more of just a team that we're going to try and score more than you.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. Look, for the neutral, it makes for great football.
Oh, 100%.
I don't know how much of the football you guys watched at the weekend, but I found myself getting really engrossed in the Titans-Colts game, but for the wrong reason. An incredibly close game, but that special teams, sloppy as hell, the punts.
Do you know that they sacked the special teams coordinator after that game?
I seen that, mate. I think we were on the phone at the time when they charged it down and then scored it in for a fumble recovery, but then it got returned. And they went for a 2-point conversion, and that got returned for the 2 points. Unbelievable. And I've seen today that they fired the special teams coordinator.
Yeah, I don't think that's a surprise. It was back-to-back punts that he had blocked, wasn't it? The second one, I think I'm right in saying, resulted in a bone fracture for the punter.
It did, all right.
Either way, Nick Folk was resorting to punting by the end of that game. But again, you look at the Indianapolis Colts on the road, they get a good win. That's 4 in a row for them now, and this weekend they go to Cincinnati. Both teams very much in the thick of the playoff hunt at the moment. That'll be a big game for both of them this weekend.
Well, we can't go ahead there.
Cheers, but see on that note then, so they fired, what was his name, Craig Aukerman, the special teams coordinator. Do you think, Richard, as a sports analyst, that the NFL are being too hasty with firing head coaches and coordinators? I mean, it seems like every week someone else is getting fired.
With head coaches, definitely not. You don't see many head coaches lose their jobs in season. I know Frank Reich's gone in the last couple of weeks after just 11 games, which I did think was a little bit bizarre, but there's a lot about the Carolina Panthers that appears bizarre at the moment, quite frankly. But you compare that situation to what you see across all levels of football in the UK, the Premier League, Championship, League One, League Two, etc. And as a rule, there's a fair degree of stability about a coaching position in the NFL. Now, I know we've seen the defensive coordinator, Jack Del Rio, go in Washington. Special teams coordinator in Tennessee's gone this week. Some of those moves, occasionally, you look at and think, well, how much of that is an element of the head coach trying to make a change in order to preserve his status as a head coach for next season going forward? Possibly an element of that, but on the whole, you don't see that many coaching changes in season. But I mean, look, we all know, we've all watched and seen this game enough now to know that when Black Monday comes around after that final Sunday of the regular season, hold on to your hats, because there are some seats that get extremely hot very quickly.
Just on that subject then, while we're talking about hirings and firings, what do you think the Patriots do with Bill Belichick? Do you think he goes in season, or do you think he lasts out to the end of the regular season?
He definitely doesn't go in season. Now, he did sign a contract extension which takes him through to the end of next season, just midway through this campaign, so not that long ago. You have to have concerns. At the last 4 games they've played, I think I'm right in saying they haven't scored more than 10 points in any of those games. And to lose them all is nigh on unheard of, unprecedented in the history of the NFL. So now you've got issues with that, because you've got a head coach who's going straight into the Hall of Fame. What he's achieved and done over 20 plus years in New England is unparalleled, frankly. But I don't think Robert Kraft wants to fire him because I think he's got too much respect for him. I know the relationship that those two have is extremely close. So I would think that if Bill Belichick was to leave the Patriots organization, it would be by the way of him stepping down. I don't see Robert Kraft sacking Bill Belichick. And I also do wonder if or not there's an element of, right, you've got one more off season to make this right and turn it around. Otherwise, it's done. It's a difficult situation to predict, to be honest, because in any other organization, Bill Belichick, with the performances that team's turned in this season, the head coach is gone. It's different in New England. They have a different way of running things. Bill Belichick's effectively the general manager as well. I know, as I say, the owner, Robert Kraft, has a lot of confidence, a lot of faith in him. But even his patience will be tried with some of the displays we've seen this year. But yeah, it's the history that makes this one so difficult, and the fact no one wants to be seen to be undermining somebody of the stature of Bill Belichick.
Yeah, they were saying that they're thinking about maybe just cutting down his general manager duties sort of thing, because his last drafts have been absolutely abysmal.
Well, it's funny you say that, because you look at drafts generally under Bill Belichick, and he's renowned for trading down in the draft order and collating lots of picks. But his actual success rate in the draft relative to some other teams really isn't that good. He's been fortunate that they landed on Tom Brady all those years back, and for now 2 decades, those two were inseparable and brought a lot of success, effectively regenerated the team on 3 different occasions, and all of them led to Super Bowl appearances. But yeah, as a general manager who operates in the draft, Belichick's record isn't outstanding. Look, don't get me wrong, it's not bad, but it's certainly not something that immediately jumps off the paper at you and says, wow, didn't he draft well? That's just not the case. What he did do well was collate a lot of draft picks and give himself a lot of opportunities to hit on players through the draft. So that's definitely one possibility. If you take some of those GM roles and responsibilities away from him, give them to another person, allow Belichick to concentrate purely on the coaching side, isn't a bad move, because as bad as they've been this year defensively, you look at the New England Patriots, there's been a lot of good performances from them.
Yep, well, that's his job. He is basically the defense coordinator of that team, and he looks after the defense, and the defense has been playing well, like you says. I think they're the only team since 1978, I think it is, that has lost by only giving up 10 points. Lost 3 games in a row by only giving up 10 points or less.
Yeah, completely. And they're only giving up around 21 points a game this season by any standards. That's not bad. That'll keep you in games and enable you to win games in the NFL. You know, they're a top 10 ranked defense overall. Defensively hasn't been the issue really for New England this year. Offensively, they have been horrific. Receivers can't catch the ball. They've struggled obviously at the quarterback position. You talk about Zach Wilson and his confidence issues at the New York Jets. Well, Mac Jones is in a similar position in New England. I just don't see any way that they continue with him following the end of this season. So what the future holds for him is up in the air right now. And equally, that's why it becomes an interesting situation up there at Foxborough, because where do they go from Mac Jones going forward?
Well, they'll have a high draft pick, and I would say Drake May would be on their cards at the minute in the draft.
Well, maybe so, but let's not forget, Mac Jones was a first-round draft pick. And many people in that draft thought he would go in the top 6. Now, he fell to them at, 15 or 16 or something?
Yeah, I didn't rate him at all. I watched a lot of his tapes, and I just could not see it. And he just looks like, don't get me wrong, he looked like what Brady looked like whenever he was first drafted, because he just looked like your dad. He doesn't look like an athlete.
Well, he did, but in the first season and a half that he played for the New England Patriots, he didn't play badly. Now, fine, I think it's fairly safe to say they condensed the playbook, and he played within the system, which, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but many critics of the Patriots during their success years accused Tom Brady of playing with it in the system. Now, we've all seen that to be, laid to rest when he went down to Tampa, played a different system under a different head coach, and immediately won a Super Bowl. So anyone that wanted to speculate on that front, get back in your cupboard. That was flat out wrong. Mac Jones, on the other hand, has had a lot of difficulties in the last 18 months or so, and it's turned into a difficult situation from up there at New England.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Curtis would say that's where Tom Brady made his career, Tampa.
Yeah, you can't tell about this, but I'm a Tampa fan, so and that's where he came.
Well, hey, look, you've enjoyed
That's
more
where he made his
Super
name.
Bowl success of late than any of the rest of us.
That is true. That is true.
That's it. Well, Richard, we're going to play a wee game with you before we leave, because I don't know if you know about American football here in Ireland, but we actually have leagues and all and everything. It's mad. We actually...
I will admit, I was aware that there is football going on in Ireland. I wasn't aware that you had a fully fledged league set up, so this is news.
Oh, wow. See, me and Mark play. Me and Mark I used to be a centre. Mark is a defensive tackle. Now moving to Jason Kelsey's role. He'll be a centre next year. So yeah, we have a full-blown league. So I'm going to play a wee game called the Logo Game with you.
Okay.
Where you guess the team's name via their logo.
Still haven't found a way to shorten that name down yet, no?
No. I don't want it shortened. It's the whole length of it that sells it.
I thought
Can we just
introducing
clarify
it as the logo game was good.
Are these logos all from Irish football?
These are all going to be Irish American football teams' logos.
I have no chance at all then, do I?
You don't need to get the name of the city or town.
Okay.
It's just a wee bit of fun. There's no wrong answers, Richard.
These are the games I like, no wrong answers.
Yep. The wronger, the better.
This is our first logo, I'm assuming, is it?
Yes. So, there's a T there. I don't know if you can see it.
I can see the T. I'm going to go Titans.
I'll tell you what. See if you turn the T upside down. What does it look like?
If you turn
Careful,
the T
then.
upside down.
Yeah.
Sword?
Look, a sword.
I-
Who has swords and they brought a horse into somewhere near Troy?
I have no idea. Hit me with it.
Trojans.
The Trojans.
The Belfast Trojans. Probably the most successful team in Northern Ireland.
I think even if he had an inkling of who that team might have been, he might have been put off by your description.
What do you think so? Trojan horse? I said a horse, a big wooden horse.
You didn't even say wooden horse, you just said
That's
a horse.
me.
You
Isn't
didn't,
it?
to
The
be
key's
fair, you
wooden.
didn't say wooden horse. That being said, I'm not sure I'd have got it anyway. So, Neil, we're good with that. Let's
Happy
go for the
days,
Vikings.
Yes. They
We've
are
got
the
one.
Limerick Vikings.
It's one more than I was anticipating. The Knights.
Yes, sir. They are the Belfast Knights. This is the most successful team in Ireland.
Oh, you see, they're all going to hate me because I'm clearly going to get this wrong. I would go for something like the Red Raiders.
Ooh,
That's pretty
Rebels.
Close,
Oh.
yeah. Close.
Rebels.
I'm a little bit disappointed that you didn't give him the hint for that
You
one.
know what, Richard? Usually every time that this comes up, I always say, do you watch Star Wars? But I'm stopping doing it because I found out that nobody else watched Star Wars bar me and Mark.
I've watched every Star Wars episode on multiple
see, no,
occasions.
one time I don't do it.
I feel I've been let down here.
Yeah, because I was
It's
going to
almost
say,
like
like
conspiracy.
you watch Star Wars and they're against, the Empire.
Rebels.
Yes.
So we're giving that
So you would have been
That's
the only
3
one that
for
would have
you.
got this. Every time I ask, everybody's like, no, I don't watch Star Wars.
This one's educational, isn't it? This one.
This is the educational one.
The
There's nobody ever
Centaurs.
gets this. No.
Bulls.
Yeah, let's
No.
say that's the first time we've actually had that answer. The
Yeah, we've
Centaurs.
actually had first time we had Centaurs, yeah.
I think the clue for this one would be Top Gun, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Top Gun.
Top Gun.
I see. It's one of the call signs, isn't it? This is going
Let's
to
say
It's not
Top
Goose.
Gun.
It's not Goose.
definitely not
Tom
Goose.
Cruise.
It's not Maverick.
It's Mavericks. Yes,
it?
you're right, Richard.
Oh, there you go. Then you see. How the heck do you get Mavericks out of that?
Mark, why are they called the Mavericks?
So a maverick is an unbranded cow or cattle. So back in the day when the cows roamed free, if a cowboy or a farmer wanted to claim, he would then brand them, and they would no longer be mavericks. So it's an unbranded cattle or cow.
See, we're
Every
educational.
day's a school day.
Yep, we're an educational show as well. This should be really hard.
Well, it can't be the Cowboys, so it'll be the Stars. Well, there we go. I said Cowboys first. I'm claiming it.
It's the Craig Allen Cowboys. There's no copyright there at all. I swear to God. It doesn't even look anything like the Cowboys logo.
I was going to say, if you've got any friends at the Cowboys organization, don't make them aware of that. There's trouble there.
Nothing to see here. Move on. Hawks or Eagles?
That is the Wexford Eagles. Now, this one's educational too, sort of, if you like Irish mythology.
Well, you see, I used to be a big fan of Greek mythology. Irish mythology, I'm not quite there. I did the whole Giant's Causeway thing a few years back. And,
what did you say, sorry?
About that. But
what did you say?
The Giants.
Wow, they are the Causeway Giants. Do you know why? Do you know? Did you ever hear the story of Giants?
There we go.
This is why we're educational as well.
Of Giants football or the Giants Causeway?
The Giants Causeway. You ever hear how Finn McCool?
I learned all about the story of the Giants Causeway. Two giants, one in Scotland, one in Ireland, basically throwing rocks at each other, and that's how the Causeway came to be.
Yes, look at this. What?
Oh, I paid attention.
Good, man.
Panthers.
Yes, the South Dublin Panthers.
Let me tell you, I have by some distance surpassed my expectations for this.
You're doing so much better than most people, to be fair.
I have no idea what this is.
This is the best team in Ireland, by the way. I don't know if you can see behind Mark there.
I even have one that says the name on it.
I
was going to say, I can't see one with a name on it.
Can you see an A?
I'm never
there,
getting
maybe?
that logo.
Or
A
and
J?
And what do they look like? Sort of pilot's wings, maybe?
I would just look at Neil's hat.
Well, do you know what? I'm going to guess at this. I think they're the Jets.
Very good. Look at you. How good is that? They are the Antrim Jets. And I did not pick them just because I support the Jets. I didn't pick them just because I support the Jets, Richard, you know. But thank you very much for playing our wee game, Richard. You did really well. I think you did the best out of...
And it was educational.
Yeah, and it's educational, honestly.
If we could be bothered to do a leaderboard, I reckon you would be top of it.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. We might have to start doing a leaderboard.
That is all I need to hear, fellas. That'll do for me.
Yep, you did so well. But here, thank you very much, Richard, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I've enjoyed it. It's always a blast. I was fortunate enough to do a show with Jeff Reinbold in Belfast and then down in Dublin at the end of January, beginning of February early this year. I will say this now. I was blown away by the passion and enthusiasm for the sport over there at the time. I definitely plan on being back visiting some more as well. So, anytime. Really enjoyed it tonight. Hope you guys have a good weekend. Even the Jets, Neil.
Yes, thank you very
much.
Fingers
crossed. But the next 4 or 5 weeks leading into the postseason, it's going to be must-watch TV. It's going to be some great fun.
100%. We can't wait. We can't wait to run up this Super Bowl. It's going to be amazing. But Richard, thank you very much. And that's us for another episode of Talkin Balls. So we'll see you guys later.
Cheers.
Have a good week, guys.